Welcome to another segment of ONNPoint. I'm Andy Martins. We're live on TV and live on Facebook for Tuesday, November 5th. This show crosses all political spectrums, and we're thrilled to have the Vice President of Region 6, Tara Mackskevich, with me live in the studio. She just got back from Sudbury, and she'll be with us right after these messages.
Last year we've been celebrating our 65th anniversary, dating back to services originating in our community in 1954, which is quite some time ago. It's been a great opportunity this past year to recognize the pioneers, the stakeholders that worked tirelessly to create what we are today. I'm grateful for everything that the families 65 years ago and the people that assembled the organization have done in order for us to achieve the success that we're experiencing 65 years later.
In your home, lighting is just as important as style.
With PowerView motorization from Hunter Douglas, you can schedule your shades to light up the room. Create privacy, or both, automatically. No hands required.
So your shades will always be in the right place at the right time in style. And it's only from Hunter Douglas.
We're back with ONNPoint for Tuesday, November 5th, live on TV and Facebook, and we're glad you're with us. And it's a thrill to welcome back a friend, Tara Mackskevich. She's Vice President of OPSEU and a very busy lady back in town and leaving tomorrow. And thank you so much, Tara, for making time for ONNPoint.
Thanks for the invitation, Andy. I always look forward to talking about labor issues.
No problem. You have Region 6, for those who couldn't remember the last time you were on, is Timmins, Sudbury, North Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, and did I miss anybody?
And surrounding areas. So we go up as far as Moosonee, almost to Thunder Bay, and almost to Algonquin Park. So it's a fairly big region. Great.
Yeah, you're a very busy lady. So let's start with this, Tara. We were talking before the show, there's 2 new units that have come into play with OPSEU. Why don't you tell us about that?
So we kind of been joking that we need to thank Mr. Ford for our organizing staff having job security. Since the PC government's come in, a lot of working people have realized that unions afford them an opportunity to have a say in the workplace and also advocate against some of the policies that this government's implementing. Here in Region 6, we have 2 new units, as you mentioned. We have Nipissing Canadian Mental Health Association in North Bay, and locally we have Algoma Public Health community programs. So they're new to our region, and our members are welcome. The interesting thing I'm finding when I'm talking to new members is, you know, we've talked in the past about organizing, and a lot of times people organize because they want to have more say in their workplace. Right. Recently, though, what I'm hearing a little more of is around, of course, what we'd expect, job security, concerns about their jobs, pensions, that sort of thing. But also with these groups, what we're finding is people are very concerned about maintaining the level of service to their clients. And that's something that, while it's in social services we definitely deal with in organizing. It's definitely at the forefront of the concerns of these new members coming in, that they, number one, want to make sure that the services that they provide locally are maintained, but also they want to have a venue to support and advocate for their clients at the provincial level, and they feel like joining a provincial union is the way to go because they have a voice then with other like-minded people.
Is there a sense that people want to, like employees of Algoma Health, and there were threats there of job cuts and stuff, people are kind of running scared in all issues across the board these days, are they not?
I think it comes down to these amalgamations that are happening but haven't happened yet, but we don't know what they're going to look like. From our integrated health networks to our public health units, and so people aren't sure what these things are going to look like. This government has been giving us many kind of cues about we're going to be doing this, but we don't get any details about it, and the devil is always in the details. So when you have a threat to your workplace, then organizing is one way to kind of at least have a even playing field.
Right, exactly. It's really important to for viewers to know that this is reality. This is existing. Tara, can you let our viewers know how much work is involved with these two new units coming in? It takes a long time to get making it happen, doesn't it, with OPSEU?
It really is individual. It really takes motivation on the part of the new members, and I think with both of them we have a strong motivation and an interest, so they really will need just the supports through the union, the assistance of a staff rep, negotiating first contract. It takes time, but it's not complicated.
Right, right. Now let's move on. There's things happening with the LCBO that are kind of troubling. We've seen this before in Ontario. Can you let us know about what you know about the LCBO?
We've talked a little bit about the LCBO before. So the LCBO actual stores that we see, the one in the OPSEU on Great Northern Road, in the Station Mall and the Market Mall, are true LCBOs. When you see an LCBO that has agency under it, it means that the profits do not go back to the province. Or if you see alcohol sales in grocery stores and outside of LCBOs. So the province has announced that they're opening 200 more agency stores. That's a huge problem for us. Number one, because we have collective agreements that maintain the work of our members, and that's, in our opinion, in contradiction to what's happening. And also that the money that goes to these agency stores, or the profits rather, those go into private pockets. So we're bleeding out the infrastructure funding for Ontario by opening these stores. And a lot of them are within a short range of an actual LCBO. So I'm not really sure why this government is so hell-bent on encouraging alcohol consumption in this province. But it's one issue is the money, the other issue is the safety. Our LCBO members are trained on the Liquor Act and on how to enforce rules, and they make sure that our community stays safe by keeping alcohol out of the hands of minors.
Yeah, the first year wasn't really that good. They focused on bucket beer and things really too much, and you know, he's pulling back on that. So I am surprised that they're maintaining that kind of emphasis on alcohol. So help me understand, these agency stores will not be unionized then, or what's the government's thinking with that?
So an agency store is usually a store within a store. So for instance, a convenience store that has alcohol sales in a corner. And we've worked really well. We do have some agency stores around our area because we're rural, right? So we've worked really well with those agency stores that didn't have a place big enough to actually have an LCBO itself. That's not the issue. The issue is the increased opening of these stores and also the proximity to actual LCBOs.
Oh, okay, right, right. Yeah, I think we really have too many outlets now. We don't need something at every turn of the corner, really. I agree with you. They seem to be putting too much emphasis on that.
Well, I mean, I've traveled, as you mentioned, I travel the region frequently. I'm not really sure why we need an agency store in Warncliffe. you can easily wait to get to Thessalon. And people are shopping in Thessalon if they're living in Warncliffe, is my belief, or going into the Sioux, whatever is convenient for them. They don't need to have alcohol directly there. They can go get it when they get their other supplies.
From a union perspective, Tara, Doug Ford says that he's going to change after the first disastrous year of his being premier. What do you think, from your perspective, Doug Ford needs to do to be more labor friendly that he's not doing currently?
Wow, okay. First of all, I don't think he's made a decision that he has to change. I think the fact that he is so disliked that he was booed at the Raptor celebration tells you that he needs to make a change if he has any thought of not decimating the PC party at the next election. But I think what he needs to do is really pull back on how the PCs are looking at Ontario and looking at the deficit and looking at dealing with the situation. We've always said that we don't have a spending problem. We have this revenue issue that's happening, and we have, like using the LCBO as an example, we have the goose that laid the golden egg, and it is being cut off piece by piece. It's literally like, here you have a wing and you have a thigh, you know, kind of thing. Like, so we have a venue, for instance, with the LCBOs to create revenue, not bring it down. So that's one piece I think that the Ford government needs to consider, is revamping completely what they tabled as a budget. Right.
And the thing is, previous governments have looked at it. Mike Karras, Dalton McGuinty, they've realized that it really doesn't pay to privatize the LCBO or OLG or anything else that generates a lot of money for the government. I'm pro public services. I really struggle with the idea that if we divest public services, that a private company will do better. They're in it for a profit, and those profits are going to come on the backs of Ontarians. If we look at, for instance, our highway maintenance. So I drove from Sudbury to the Sioux, as you mentioned today. So thank you to my wonderful people at Local 602 and 611 that kept the highways around Sault Ste. Marie and area safe for me. They're hardworking people, and this group was divested from the Ministry of Transportation. They've gone through 3, if not 4, different employers. And basically, they get new employers all the time because there's no money to be made in highway maintenance in Northern Ontario. Right.
I mentioned that at the pre-budget consultations and pointed it out and wanted to make sure that people understood at the table that they would be better served under public services. And that's when we're not making money off of people, because what happens is they get lower wages so that the company gets a profit.
Right, exactly. Stay right there, Tara. We'll take a couple of commercial breaks and we'll be right back on ONNPoint.
home, lighting is just as important as style.
With PowerView Motorization from Hunter Douglas, you can schedule your shades to light up the room, create privacy, or both, automatically. No hands required.
So your shades will always be in the right place at the right time in style. And it's only from Hunter Douglas.
Back with ONNPoint, we're talking to Tara Maskahevich. She's the Vice President of Region 6 for OPSEU. And Tara, thank you so much again. We enjoy having you on this show, I really do. What about the OPSEU bees? What can you tell me about that? Am I going to be stung in the studio here?
I'm glad you asked. That's like a favorite project, I think, for all the members that are aware of it. So what happens is we have in North York, not downtown Toronto, let me be clear, we have our head office and we have beehives now. We partnered with a local beekeeper and we have beehives on top of the building. There's a bunch of rules. I know when we were talking about it in Verner at the International Plow Festival, people were concerned that we had, hives in the middle of downtown Toronto without water or pollinating plants for the bees. It was all checked out. This is good space for them to have, and they're well taken care of. So, now we can say that we have 165,000 members and 500,000 bees in OPSEU.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah, you mentioned that to me before the show. I grew up within a couple of miles of that in Don Mills, so it's where people were getting a little nervous at the beginning, eh?
It's, it is an area that we need to repopulate bees. So this is part of, making sure that we're more environmentally thoughtful in our actions at OPSEU and giving back to the community. And actually, the area is benefiting significantly from the bee population coming back to them. And also we will be making honey. Well, the bees make honey. We'll have honey. And that honey will be used for charitable purposes. We haven't quite figured out which way we're going to go. There's a few options, but they will be for charity once the bees are producing honey.
I think some of these politicians need to be sweetened up because I think even with this current government, the majority government, we can do more with crossing the aisle and working together as such. What's your feeling about that?
Well, I think that's so important. We have a lot of NDP support in our region. Jamie West, Franz, Gilles, Pentimons, Mike Mantha, and we're talking to these folks, and they have some really good ideas about helping our communities. Jamie West private members bill last week is a prime example of how we could pull together and support each other in our communities. This is something that Northern Ontario needs. This is about human lives. And it was a disappointment to hear that Mr. Romano was not in the legislature that day.
No, he wasn't. I've got confirmation of that. And I'm a little disappointed too, because privately I've been moving and trying to get some traction for that. But for me, honestly, and I'll say it publicly because I've spent a lot of time on it, this government should be more interested in social issues. And sadly, they're not. And it's certainly showing.
I think it's even more chilling than that. I mean, this government's been accused of social murder. And what that means is they're dismantling the social safety net and creating a system where actually, literally, people's lives are shortened or at risk. So if we look at even anti-poverty campaigns, that sort of thing, we know that lifespan is directly related to how well you can look after yourself, feed yourself, be clothed, housed, that sort of thing. And so really what this government is doing is shortening people's lifespans by cutting services, cutting charitable organization services and payments that people have relied on. These are things that we've built in Ontario, and they're being dismantled.
With the cuts of the LHINs and that, it's sort of a non-caring attitude, isn't it, out there?
It seems to be fueled by a panic that we don't have enough money, and yet we still are functioning as a government, as a province. People are still going to work every day. So the panic part of it that the PCs, I believe, tried to use to lever some of their decision making and get support behind it is kind of dissipating, and maybe that's why Mr. Ford has decided he needs to be a little bit more warm and fuzzy.
On that, on the Minister of Finance thing, Vic Fedeli got demoted after the first year. Are you surprised on that move by Doug Ford? Because people thought he was a competent member out of North Bay.
Well, I know Mr. Fedeli has enjoyed quite a bit of popularity in the North Bay area. He was also, before being the MPP, he was a well-known and liked mayor as well. I've met with Mr. Fedeli at the legislature when I was doing some lobbying, and he was very amenable to meet with me and speak with me. I'm not sure what happened there. It seems like the Ford government did a reboot of their entire grouping, and maybe Mr. Fedeli was a casual of that.
Yeah, perhaps he wasn't happy with the way things were rolling out as such. But let's talk a little bit about our favorite MPP here in Sault Ste. Marie. Your read of how Ross Romano has been performing in the last year since the government got elected.
I kind of think it's unfair to say the last year, because they took the last 5 months off.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, really, we're not talking about a full year of work by this government.
Right.
I can't really say how Mr. Romano's doing. I haven't seen him. Not sure if you have. I did see him, actually. That's not true. He drove past me when I was at a protest in Sudbury in September.
Right. Well, exactly. And sometimes these moves in politics don't make sense. We don't know why it happens, and you can assume as much as you want, but you may not get the right answer. Tara, let's talk about the Ontario Health Coalition. You're involved with that, and let our viewers know what's going on. Going to be some activity in the next few months.
So the Ontario Health Coalition is nonpartisan. It's not specific to Labour. Sorry.
Right.
But obviously what they want is quality public health services. So that's where they intersect with our interests at the Ontario Public Service Employees Union. Just a second, Andy. There, I think I'm good. And so the Ontario Health Coalition is doing a series of 4 rallies throughout the province, and Sault Ste. Marie is one of the areas that was picked to do the rally. So on November 30th, there will be a rally 12 o'clock at the George Leach Centre at Algoma University. And before that, there's a group of people that are supporting the Ontario Health Coalition, and they're going to be leafleting, and they'll be doing signage around town to remind people this is not just for Labour, this is not just for people who have political action. If someone wants to make a statement and support quality public health care, then they should come out on the 30th at noon.
What is the Healthcare Coalition's main points? The system really isn't working as well as it could be.
Honestly, if I was going to read out the talking points from the Health Coalition, it's a long laundry list of concerns around what's happening with public health care right now. However, the main pieces for us are that we want quality public health care throughout the province, accessible to all, and some pieces are around different services in different areas being shut down, amalgamations, what that looks like, access to service. We know that if we're going from LHINs, down to 10 LHINs from 45, right, I believe, then what is that going to look like? How are we going to be able to access services? What will those services look like? All those questions.
Right. And I can tell you that from my personal perspective of my son's situation, hospital doctors and hospitals are not following up with patients in a timely manner. And that needs to improve. That's a defect in our healthcare system. There needs to be better follow-up.
Well, I think it's even bigger than that. If you're always putting a Band-Aid on the problem, if we don't have beds for people that are acutely ill, then how do we have the time, staff, and resources to be doing any preventative or post care? I mean, right, that's the basic piece. It's not necessarily that I don't think that our healthcare professionals want to follow up. I believe that the work is such that They're trying to deal with the emergency in front of them, or the difficulty in front of them, and they don't have the resources to do the preventative or post-support care.
And this new doctors team thing that the government came up with, that's going to take many years to implement. That is just not going to happen overnight here.
Well, and again, I'm not speaking specifically to that, but to this government's programming in general, right, is that they come up with these ideas, and then the implementation seems to be left up to, I'm not sure who, a process. It seems to be left in the wind. So all these folks say, okay, there's a change coming, but nobody really knows where it's going. It's like steering a ship with, no steering wheel.
And I guess autism seems to be a piece of that. Nobody knows where it's going. They pulled back, but people's lives are being affected with this.
Absolutely. There was an issue with accessing services before this government came in. What they proposed to do would be very unfair and very cruel to a lot of families. And then they pulled back on it, but now they're in consultation. So again, what does the consultation look like? Is it going to matter, or is it just buying time until we all forget about the problem?
Exactly. Tara, I got to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming in. The show just flew by, and we'll have you on again real soon. Thanks a million, Tara.
Thanks, Andy.
I'll be back to wrap up the show right after these messages.
This is On TV.
In your home, lighting is just as important as style.
With PowerView Motorization from Hunter Douglas, you can schedule your shades to light up the room, create privacy, or both, automatically. No hands required.
So your shades will always be in the right place at the right time in style. And it's only from Hunter Douglas.
Welcome back to ONNPoint. We're live on OnTV and Facebook, and we hope you enjoyed the show with Tara Maskahevich talking about unions and the government. And next week on ONNPoint, we'll have Mr. KC Security, Dan LaPrade. He's a big dude around here. He sponsors the morning show with Luann and Tim as well. And he'll be here to talk about bylaws and parking, and there's an RFP that's going in. He may get that to ticket cars that are on the street. They need to enforce that much better. And then on Tuesday, 1 week from today, Joe Kemp will be here to talk about travel. Kind of feels like you want to go to Florida, so we'll have all the ins and outs of travel. Until then, I'm Andy Martins for ONNPoint. We'll see you next time.